Hello and welcome to our slideshow presentation, Professor. Our group decided to pick homelessness for our project, and our title of our slides is The War Against Homelessness. In the next slide, Jesus will begin explaining exactly what homelessness is.
Hello, this is Jesus Lopez, and we will be talking about homelessness today in our presentation. First, what is homelessness? Homelessness is when an individual or family lacks a fixed, regular, and adequate nighttime residence, such as those living in emergency shelters or transitional housing. Some other examples of what homelessness may look like include an individual or family who is fleeing or attempting to flee domestic violence, has no other residence, and lacks the resources or support networks to obtain permanent housing, someone who sleeps in doorways, overnight shelters, parks, buses, stations, and etc., a person who stays with a succession of friends or relatives and has no permanent living arrangement on their first day of each month. So a great amount of homelessness comes due to people just not having safe or adequate housing, and many people do couch surf just so they can stay afloat and survive, just so they can find a job, or just because housing is just too expensive to live in. Causes of homelessness. Poverty is the leading cause of homelessness, which begins with stagnant wages, loss of unemployment, increase in prices, lack of affordable housing, evictions of tenants, lack of affordable health care, and racial inequality and unemployment. A great amount of these were compounded with COVID. Since stagnant wages have been a constant problem, that was not compounded that much during COVID. But due to the loss of unemployment and the lack of affordable health care, there was many people who lost their jobs during coronavirus and didn't have anywhere else to turn to, which many people were saved by the rent moratorium, but it did not stop people from losing loved ones, and many loved ones who took care of the household or even the breadwinners in the family. And due to the loss of a place of wealth in the family, families would not have any money to be able to afford good health care or even afford housing, especially during the coronavirus, where many people lost their jobs.
So the negative effects of homelessness is substance and drug abuse, mental health issues, physical illness and injury, communicable diseases, crime preparation or victimization, lack of ability to care for self or others, lack of self-esteem, shame, development or behavior problems. Commitments to end homelessness in Illinois. Chicago Plan 2.0, 7-year program focusing on strategic priorities to prevent and end homelessness, complementing Getting House, Staying House, original Chicago 2003 plan. Illinois Executive Order 2001, effective September 3, 2021. Approach to combat homelessness, which builds off existing policies and programs through Illinois Department of Human Services. Chicago Plan 2.0, Service funding was increased by over 20 million permanent and supportive housing programs. Rapid housing funded through the Federal Emergency Solutions Grant. Private funders, 26 million put towards permanent housing through the Department of Housing and Urban Development under the McKinney-Vento Homeless Assistance Act. Chicago was given 54 million annually through the Homeless Emergency Assistance and Rapid Transition to Housing. Priorities and goals. Crisis response system, access to stable and affordable housing, youth homelessness, employment, advocacy, and civic engagement, cross-system integration, capacity buildings. Chicago Plan 2.0's objectives: crisis response systems, create coordinated access system for prevention, emergency shelter, and interim housing by end of 2013. Double prevention and diversion resources for families and singles to reduce new households experience homelessness. Access to stable and affordable housing, increased numbers of rapid rehousing units to meet needs, increased numbers of permanent supportive housing units to meet needs, harness funding from government and to expand affordable housing options for low-income households, youth homelessness, triple capacity of youth housing system, employment, increased numbers of households employed, advocacy and civic engagement, advocate for additional resources, increased civic participation, and commitment to goal of ending homelessness. Cross-system integration, foster coordination among government agencies by establishing Chicago interagency councils on homelessness, ensure rapid assessments and connections to resources for households experience homelessness, capacity buildings, increase Chicago's outcomes of achievements.
The Chicago Plan 2.0 objectives. So the crisis response system is to create a coordinated access for prevention, emergency shelters, and intern housing by the end of 2013. Double prevention and diversion resources for families and signals to reduce new household experiencing homelessness, as well as access to stable and affordable housing. Increase the number of rapid rehousing units to meet need, increase number of permanent supportive housing units to meet need, and harness funding from the government to expand affordable housing for low-income households, as well as increasing youth homelessness and making sure that we can increase the houses for youth homelessness and providing them with more resources. And for employment, we wish to employ more homeless people so they have a sustainable income. And as well for advocacy and civil engagement, so we could fight for homeless people's rights so they can get the resources that they deserve, that they deserve. And cross-system integration, foster coordination among government agencies by establishing Chicago's Interagency Council on Homelessness, ensure rapid assessment and connections to resources for households experience homelessness, and the capacity building, increase Chicago's outcome achievements. And the Illinois executive orders for 2021. It's funding through 329 million for relief funding, such as rental assistance was provided by Illinois Housing Department, and 70 million funded through American Research Plan Act is put towards supporting housing program. 1.5 billion invested in housing relief this year. Services produce affordable housing and accessible housing for all Illinois residents, extension on evictive moratorium to October 3rd, 2021, and the creation of interagency task force on homelessness. The last slide, the Illinois executive order for 2021 objectives, establishment of Illinois interagency task force on homelessness and community advisory council on homelessness. Lead states comprehensive effort to decrease homelessness and unnecessary institutionalization and improve the health and human services for homeless people, and as well strengthen safety nets that can contribute to the housing stability, and as well establishing of Illinois Homeless Prevention Act and Illinois Youth Homeless Prevention Subcommittee Act to create prevention and assistance programs to shorten emergency housing times and assist with securing permanent housing and create visions for preventing further youth homelessness crisis.
Although the Chicago Plan 2.0 and the Illinois Executive Order are quite effective to relieve the social issue of homelessness, there are still some obstacles that the homeless community faces. Some of these obstacles include the lack of knowledge on the resources available to them and even how to go about educating themselves on such resources. There should be more of an incentive to educate the homeless community about what benefits and services they could possibly receive. Nevertheless, this does not mean that every person who is homeless is uneducated about these resources. There are many people who have been able to take advantage of these benefits and services, such as the resources that can be used to find affordable housing. Although these resources do exist, many individuals are often faced with the challenge of finding childcare and even a form of transportation that aligns with their work schedule. To also build off of the affordable housing resources, many of these temporary and emergency forms of housing may even have restrictions. This could make the form of housing inaccessible to a homeless person under such conditions. Not only could these forms of housing have restrictions, but it may not be as affordable for an unemployed person as it would for a homeless person who is employed. Once again, although the Chicago Plan 2.0 and the Illinois Executive Order is able to provide multiple resources for the homeless community, funding is often limited, and many of these programs and policies take effect after a period of time. It would be a lot more beneficial for the homeless community if these policies and programs would take effect sooner and more funding was provided to their community. The recent progress of the Chicago Plan 2.0. As mentioned in the previous slide, it does take time for policies and programs to take effect. Due to the recentness of the Illinois Executive Order, there is no current data on the progress. The executive order was issued September 3rd of 2021. Hopefully, within the next year or two, there will be more data provided. Thankfully, the Chicago Plan 2.0 has been able to demonstrate very much success thus far. As illustrated in the picture to the right, there has been a 13% decrease in the overall homeless population in Illinois, a 22% decrease in the homeless population on veterans, over $72 million in government funds, which support the services provided to the homeless community, and 6,131 people have been housed in the state of Illinois during the year of 2016. Not only is this progress a very significant sign that the Chicago Plan 2.0 is quite effective, there is more progress to be mentioned. There was a creation of a homeless database. Close to 3,000 veterans were moved to a form of permanent housing. A 12-member youth advisory board is in the works to end youth homelessness. 397 beds throughout 5 family programs were funded from an additional $1.2 million in 2017. There are over 70 chronic homelessness pilot project client housed in 2016, and there was a 67% reduction in chronic homelessness during the same year. Overall, this is a great projection. The homeless community is definitely being taken care of with the Chicago Plan 2.0, and hopefully they will soon be taken care of just as well with the Illinois Executive Order. This is the conclusion for our presentation. We also inserted a reference page with 3 resources that we used for the data that we had provided into our presentation. And that is it. Thank you so much for your time.